Well, I'm here with my good friend Jeff Loudon, and really happy to be here because Jeff and I go back quite a few years.
Yep.
And we've had some great experiences in the past. But Jeff, I'd like you to tell the story of what occurred a few years ago when I had made you an offer to hypnotize you when you were ready to stop smoking. I worked in the record business, and I met you, and you'd mentioned one day you wanted to stop smoking. And I said, well, if you ever want to stop smoking, I'd be glad to hypnotize you. Just let me know.
Yeah, it was an offer that was on the table really for a long time.
Yeah.
And we had worked together for many different projects and spent time together and had actually gone out and spent time in our lives together afterwards and just visited and talked about our work jobs in general. And Tom had always said, you know, when the time comes and you're ready to give up the smoking, I can actually hypnotize you and help you to give it up. It's something that's a part of your life, and when you're ready to give it up, let me know, and that time will come and we'll sit down and do the hypnotism, and it'll be a help to you to be able to give it up for good. And at a certain time, I was ready to give that up, and we had gotten together, and I actually had flown out for my job out to Los Angeles, and I had a chance to go to Tom's office, and I'll never forget the time when we drove out there. A friend of mine, I had an opportunity to go on the road and meet some recording artists, and she said, well, I can take you over to that area, I'm familiar. So we drove over there, and I can remember smoking on the way over there and actually getting out of the car and putting my cigarette out on the curb and then coming up to your office and sitting down with you. But that was the last cigarette. It's been almost 10 years since I've had a puff off of a cigarette.
Jeez.
And I can still remember driving over there and putting that cigarette out on the curb.
Now, do you remember when that was, what year? Because you would call me like every year on the day that you would stop smoking. I think it was in December or something, but there was a date that you'd call me every year, and you'd tell me it was another year.
Every year in the spring, actually.
Spring.
And it's been about 10 years, and I still remember that, and I still try to keep in touch because I'm so grateful to have the kind of help to get that accomplished.
Well, it was my pleasure, and then one other time you had called me, or we'd spoken, I was going to come out to Minneapolis,
Right.
and I think maybe you still were a little insecure about stopping smoking or something because you wanted me to re-hypnotize you one more time. Remember that?
Right, I remember that. And actually, the second time that I was hypnotized, we were able to make a tape, and I used that tape in a very valuable way because, you know, I just didn't have a chance to run into you every day, and I could listen to that tape.
Right.
And could reinforce what you had taught me through hypnotism to be able to prevent me from smoking again.
And the tape would actually re-hypnotize you too.
Absolutely.
After you had stopped smoking, a few years after Jeff had stopped smoking, something in his life occurred, something very, very dramatic, very traumatic. And Jeff, I'd like you to tell the viewers what occurred.
Sure. About 4.5 years ago, I found out that my eyesight was continuing to dwindle, and I had to go in and address it. And what I found through the doctor's help was that I actually had a brain tumor. It had come from a cell at birth that had laid dormant, and actually later on in life had progressed to grow to a point where it created symptoms that caused a lack of vision. It was discovered that the brain tumor was considerably growing and throughout my entire head, and that at the time I really only had about 6 months left to live. I had to go out and on my own find a neurologist who could do a surgery to remove something like this. They found and thought because of other patients that it was not malignant. It was an epidermoid cyst, and that it was causing to be able to put pressure on different parts of my brain. And one of the first things that he asked me was, are you a smoker? Because if you are a smoker, it's very possible that there would really be no need to do surgery because I'd never make it through as a smoker. And one of the things that he did tell me, even though I was not a smoker, was I only had a 5% chance to survive the surgery. But I believed that it was worthwhile to take that risk and to take that chance to be able to give me more than 6 months. And that because I was a non-smoker, it was going to help me be able to at least have a chance to get through this. And 4 years ago, I went through 16 hours worth of brain surgery with 9 physicians. And it was quite a traumatic thing, and I was able to make it through it and have the dedication to go on. And then 6 months later, they went back in to try and pick up a little bit more. They left a little bit of tumor in me because it would have been too risky to try and abort it completely. But in the last 4.5 years, with MRIs coming every 6 months, I was actually able to show that the tumor had not regrown, and shown a great benchmark that within the last 4.5 years, the regrowth has not occurred. So I owe a lot to Tom, and he's really helped me a lot, and it's definitely worth mentioning.
What was the surgeon's name?
Dr. Stephen Haynes. He's actually continuing to practice. He's moved out to High Point, North Carolina right now, and has offered that if I ever do need any kind of surgical help, that he'd be more than happy to continue on to help me.
And the greatest thing of all things, what saved your life, is the fact that you'd stopped smoking.
Absolutely.
And that's what I find so astonishing, because when I met you and you wanted help, I was glad to give it to you. It's great. I could help a friend to stop smoking. But to think that just by stopping smoking saved your life and helped you to have a surgery that wouldn't have been conducted if you smoked, it just makes you really think the power of hypnosis, as well as the power of what the poisonous cigarettes can do to you.
Absolutely.
So I'm just so glad to see you, and it's so great to see you, Jeff, because you look great. And now we did a little bit of hypnosis. We're working on something else.
Yeah.
Which is going to work really great for you. But it's just really neat to see that you're here with me, and that we're friends, and that you're alive and healthy. And you probably appreciate life than most people, because
Absolutely.
you were on the table, and there was a good chance you would have died during the surgery.
5% chance to make it. It's not a lot, but when you have 5%, it's something worth going for.
Yeah, and this is great. Well, I'm so glad to see you, and we're going to be getting together a lot, and we're going to go do some ice fishing.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
All the pleasure is mine.